Good evening and welcome to Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices. I'm Joanna Hernandez. On the show tonight.
It's the fear, it's the hysteria.
Despite the gun laws already on the books in Illinois, a look at why the state doesn't ban guns from polling places. Governor Pritzker is looking to eliminate the state grocery tax, but some municipalities are pushing back. And Little Village and Humboldt Park become state-designated culture districts. Community organizers join us to share more about what that means. And now to some of today's top stories. Chicago public health officials are warning residents of its first confirmed measles case since 2019. Officials say the source of the infection is unknown at this time, but adds the individual is recovering well at home. The department says no link has been identified between this case and a measles case in an Indiana resident who had visited Chicago last month. CDPH is working to notify people who may have been exposed on February 27th at Swedish Hospital, Medical Pavilion, or the CTA 92 bus. If you were at those locations on that day, CPDH says you should immediately call them. The opening of the Obama Presidential Center is delayed again. The center broke ground in Jackson Park in 2021 and had been slated to open in October 2025. But it is now set to open to the public in spring in 2026. The latest delay was first reported by the Chicago Sun-Times. The news comes as former President Barack Obama was on hand to tour the site today. The Obama Foundation announces on Monday it will break ground on the center's 45,000 square foot athletic and conference center. Chicago is one step closer to a hybrid elected school board. That's after lawmakers in the Illinois House passed a measure that would allow city residents to vote for half of the Chicago Board of Education in November's election. Mayor Brandon Johnson would appoint the other half of the board and its president. Voters will then get the chance to elect the entire board in 2026. But community groups have pushed back, saying that delaying the fully elected board is anti-democratic and the hybrid plan empowers the Chicago Teachers Union. The proposal passed the Illinois Senate yesterday and will now go to Governor J.B. Pritzker. Cook County is launching a new outreach effort to combat the ongoing opioid epidemic. Today, Cook County Health announced a mobile overdose prevention and outreach van. According to Cook County data, more than 1,500 people died of opioid overdoses last year. Outreach workers will provide treatment, fentanyl testing strips, and recovery support.
This mobile van has embarked on a mission to provide comprehensive support and intervention to those in need. Their commitment to meeting individuals where they are, both geographically and emotionally, sets them apart as true champions of compassion and empathy.
The program is being funded by a grant to serve communities hardest hit by fatal overdoses. While the weather in Chicago has felt a bit strange this year, one season that is always reliable is pothole season. The Chicago Department of Transportation says the mild weather has contributed to the agency's efforts to tackle potholes and maintain roadways this winter.
This February was one of the warmest and driest on record. Our crews took advantage of this and filled more than 93 potholes during the month of February. This is up about 63% from February compared to February of last year. And this allows us to shift our focus from patching to paving operations earlier this year.
You can see if you see a pothole, you can report it to 311. Driving through a pothole is now fun. Now up next, details on a potential new gun ban. Amanda Vinicky joins us right after this.
Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices, is made possible in part by the support of these donors.
You can cast your ballot now for the March 19th primary. Early voting has been available for a month. So far, it's going well. There haven't been major disruptions, but threats of violence at the polls are a rising concern. WTTW News reporter Amanda Vinicky joins us now with more on a plan that seeks to address that by prohibiting guns at the polls. Amanda, what can you tell us?
Well, all right, when you vote, there are rules, and some of these are obvious, like no tampering with voting machines, no stuffing ballot boxes, tearing down or defacing campaign posters, or here's an obvious one, accepting money in exchange for a vote. Less obvious, it is against state law to knowingly share a marked ballot. So no selfies at the voting machine. You can, however, go armed with information. Say, use your phone to check out the WTTW News Voters Guide. Depending on where you live, it is also, where you vote, that is, it is also okay to be literally armed. State law has no explicit restriction on guns in polling places. State lawmaker Bob Morgan is working to change that. The representative says it is necessary given rising security concerns surrounding elections.
As we have seen election locations increasingly under threat of those who are trying to disrupt the process of being able to vote, people who are increasingly using violence to intimidate people and bringing guns to these polling locations to scare people from executing their constitutional rights.
Gun rights advocates say Morgan's proposal is an answer in search of a problem.
Show me the data that there is a problem. And if there's a problem, then great. Let's see it. I can almost guarantee you there's not.
The Illinois State Rifle Association's Ed Sullivan says the proposal's fear and hysteria. And he says it's unfairly trying to categorize law-abiding gun owners as dangerous.
The reality is this. If somebody is going to do something bad at a polling place, they're going to do something bad at a polling place. The reality, what this bill does is make people less safe, because if someone's going to do something, you think there's going to be a cop right there? How many times have you seen in the press where someone that had a concealed carry permit stopped something from happening?
Sullivan mentioned concealed carry permit holders. No, those are folks who passed background checks and are licensed by the state to be able to carry guns in public. So I do want to clarify, guns are already forbidden at many places that serve as polling places like schools, libraries, and government buildings. But that is by virtue of their regular function, not to do with an election. Morgan's bill would explicitly ban guns at any and all polling places during early voting and on Election Day.
We saw in Wisconsin and Michigan in 2020 where polling locations were literally under threat and people were showing up with extensive amounts of firearms to intimidate and scare people. So we're not going to let that happen in Illinois, and we're going to make sure that polling locations are a safe place to go.
Morgan points out some election authorities say security concerns have made it more difficult already to recruit election workers and judges.
And Amanda, what are the bill's chances?
Well, Joanna, gun issues are not strictly partisan, but we have seen success in the Democratic-controlled state government of some major gun control issues. Think about that, assault weapons law. A similar plan to Morgan's already just passed and became law in New Mexico. And then you have states including neighboring Michigan as well as Vermont that are considering similar proposals banning guns in polling places. Now, Sullivan, again, that gun rights lobbyist, says that outside of his main arguments that we talked about, there are some substantive problems with Morgan's proposal, including, he says, it is silent on issues like what to do about armed security guards that may be working at polling places. He also says that it doesn't do anything like requiring no gun signs at polling places, even though that is something that is required under the concealed carry law.
Well, Amanda, thank you for that report.
Thank you.
And you can check out our online voter guide that Amanda mentioned. That's at WTTW.com/voter guide. We're back with more right after this. A new proposal from Governor J.B. Pritzker is looking to remove the state tax on groceries. The tax could save Illinois shoppers hundreds of dollars a year. But many municipal leaders say that while they support the effort, they are concerned with how the governor plans to make up for the loss in revenue, since the money collected from the tax goes to local governments. Joining us now with more are Latanya Jackson-Wilson, Vice President of the Advocacy at the Shriver Center on Poverty Law, and Mayor Gary Grasso of Suburban Burr Ridge. Thank you both for joining us. Latanya, I want to start with you. How would eliminating this tax impact people who buy groceries, which is everyone who buys groceries?
Right. It would put more money in people's pockets. If you've gone to the grocery store lately, you know that it is very pricey. They've shrinked the items and raise the prices, and we're all experiencing that. So 1% reduction in cost for groceries, it's a step in the right direction.
What would you say the impact would be on like a Latino community?
The poverty rate for the Latino community is higher than the average rate. It's 11% is poverty rate. It's 14% for the Latino community, 28% for the Black community. And so their incomes are lower, and this would significantly impact them in terms of giving them more money in their pockets.
And Mayor Grasso, could eliminating the 1% tax help families and individuals?
Oh, sure. If there's a definition of regressive tax, that probably is within that definition because it does impact the poorer communities more so. Our concern, of course, is where do we get the money that that tax provided? It probably was not a good tax. I think the governor correctly pointed out, we're one of 10 or 12 or 13 states that do this. So maybe it's now going to be a dirty dozen that are left, so to speak. But where do we get the money for the municipalities? My job as mayor of my community, the various mayors around, their job is to fund and provide services. We have pension obligations, we have others.
Talking about those services, what does that money from these taxes typically go towards?
So our basic services, from garbage removal to plowing the roads to fixing the streets, to making our police departments, obviously the number one job of government is to keep people and property safe. So all of this money goes to this, and even 1% in our community, I'll just give you an example, Burr Ridge is going to lose, to use a word, $200,000, $250,000 a year now from this tax, which is real money to a community such as mine, and I can tell you other mayors have already added up what it's going to cost them. So we're looking to the governor to say, this is affecting local government, and how about looking at the local government distributive fund, what we call LGDF, and why don't you raise it now another point, because you've already taken, not you, Governor Pritzker, to be fair, the governor has added back, but past governors have taken almost 40% of that money away from us in the last decade or more. And so give us another point on that, and that would probably make it up.
What are your thoughts on that? And what are you saying?
We believe that strong families, strong communities, taxes are necessary to provide for services for our communities and for our families. Making a different choice is what's necessary here.
I want to break down some numbers. Chicago reported an estimated $80 million in lost revenue from this. Others reported amounts ranging from $8 million to $30,000. How do you respond to this concern from municipalities?
I think that municipalities want their communities to be strong. They want their families to be strong. They want people to be able to buy groceries and not have a tax imposed on groceries. There needs to be another choice. We believe poverty is a policy choice, and we can make different choices.
Right. And the governor, I will speak out on this, the governor's suggestion that, well, we'll just let communities decide if they want to impose the tax locally, that's not going to happen. That's the wrong approach. You're not going to turn around and tell the communities, well, we're not going to impose a grocery tax in Burr Ridge. They're not going to do that because I think people recognize that maybe that's not a good tax. Our concern is, okay, Governor, nice move, but when it's a yin and a yang. Where do we get that money?
So that leads to my next question. There are concerns that municipalities would just raise another tax to make up for the loss.
I'm going to tell you what's going to happen, probably. The first thing they're going to do is see how we can better manage our village, see where we can tighten the belt a little bit more and make up for that lost money. In my community, we can probably do that easier because it's not that huge a number. But some communities, this is significant, and so there will have to be another way to tax or to have service fees, which is another form of tax.
Are you hearing other concerns from other mayors?
Yes, I think the mayors who, where they have a very tight budget, where there are struggling communities, that to provide service, and I said before, the number one function of government is public safety, which is on everybody's mind. They're concerned. There are these, okay, that was important money for a policeman, a police woman, a squad car.
And Latanya, I want to go to you. This is just 1% and can seem quite insignificant compared to others. Why this?
Because groceries, people need food, and we shouldn't be penalizing or making money off of people or taxing food and groceries, especially in this environment where groceries have increased so much over the last couple of years.
What's other things that people should know about this?
Well, I think that one of the things that people should know, that people who are living in poverty tend to work. They're working people. And one of the other things is that there are SNAP benefits, people who are receiving SNAP benefits, that has been decreased. They were receiving a certain amount during the pandemic, and over the last year, that has reduced. They're not receiving as much as they were receiving. So this is a large impact on people who are living in poverty, and people who, and this isn't a tax that 1% doesn't sound like a lot for people who are making a couple $100,000. But if you're making $15,000 a year or $30,000 a year, it's a lot.
You see that impact that it has on families with the work that you do.
Right, yes, we do. Yes.
And Mayor Grasso, what kinds of cuts could you be looking at if there isn't a way to rebuild revenue? I know you talked a little bit about that.
We might delay a few things. I don't know that we'll cut anything. We may delay some road improvements. Again, I agree that the tax probably should go away. Obviously, a gallon of milk is a gallon of milk. And
it was suspended during the pandemic.
It was, and so we made up. But it was federal money that came in to make up a lot of differences. All that money has gone away. The state's not getting it. The city of Chicago, we're not getting it anymore. So we'll probably belt tighten. We may delay a few things as we try to figure this out. But we're going to go to the governor and say, hey, remember that local government distributive fund, that LGDF, that you have inched up for us a little bit. Thank you for that. Look at it again and maybe inch it up a little bit more next year to make up for this difference, which is overall sales tax and not a grocery tax based. So that's more equitable.
Well, thank you both for your input. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Up next, state funding for 10 culture districts across the state. How the program works right after a look at the weather. Neighborhoods historically impacted by gentrification and economic disinvestment can apply to get millions of dollars for preservation efforts. It's part of the state designated culture district program, which allows organizations in 10 districts across Illinois to apply for state funding to help support programming efforts in their communities. Two of the districts include Little Village and Humboldt Park. Here to tell us more are Jose Lopez, Executive Director of the Puerto Rican Culture Center, and Kim Close, Executive Director of the Foundation of Little Village. Thank you both for joining us. I want to start with you, Jose. You are a longtime organizer with the Puerto Rican community in Humboldt Park. This culture district didn't come overnight, did it? Can you tell us more about your work and how this culture designation came about?
Well, it came about, we were facing obviously the twin problems of historical disinvestment and gentrification. And we convened a community health summit about 7-8 years ago, and we came up with this idea. If the state legislature can designate areas, why not designate an area as a cultural designated district and make culture and look at culture as an enterprise, not as something that is a sidekick, but something that's central to the vitality of the community, the city, and hopefully the world.
You're very passionate about this. And for Kim, what is the historical significance of Little Village? How does this destination help recognize that history?
Little Village is extremely important to the history of the city of Chicago. It has always been a community of immigrants, and even to this day, it's a port of entry for people coming into the United States, immigrating directly into Chicago through the Arch.
We know the Arch, we can see it now right there.
And so not only does it have historical significance, but in terms of the economic impact that 26th Street has on the city and the state of Illinois, Little Village is, it's also known as the quinceañera capital of the Midwest. So it's a beautiful place to visit in Chicagoland, and it definitely deserves this cultural district
and
designation.
very quickly, the Foundation of Little Village is a newer initiative, right? Can you tell us about your involvement in the community and the role of the organization in the community?
Yeah, thank you. The Foundation of Little Village was established in 2018 to deliver business services in Spanish to the community of entrepreneurs that are investing in Little Village and the surrounding communities around Little Village. So we offer entrepreneurial cohorts in Spanish, and also we have initiatives for corridor revitalization and cultural preservation, which is why we applied to get the designation on behalf of the community.
And Jose, going to you, what does it mean to be recognized by the state and be eligible to receive up to $3 million in funding? How will this money, be spread in the community?
I think the most important part of this is that it speaks to the very idea, as I said, culture. But most importantly, is the redefining of urban centers. We've lived in a world in which cities have always been defined by those that are the elites. In the 21st century, in this informational city, why aren't we thinking about the world in the city? And what this creates, this ensures that communities can be vibrant, dynamic, can exchange, can know each other, can learn about each other, eat each other's food, dance to each other's music, listen to amazing compositions. All of this is what makes our culture. For us in the Puerto Rican Cultural Center, it means that we're investing right now in the Puerto Rican agenda. We're creating, obviously, 4 pillars. One, obviously, around economic development, health, education, and housing, and sort of wrap around by arts and culture. And so we are looking at, in the next few weeks, opening 6 new businesses on Division Street, on that historic
And that's a big
strip.
deal.
That's a very big deal.
Do you want people who were longtime Humboldt Park residents who've left because of gentrification to come back into the community?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, next month, Hispanic Housing will open a 60-apartment building, the Pedro Albizu Campos residence, for 60 apartments that will be affordable housing right on the corner of Division and California, in front of Humboldt Park.
That's great. And for you, Kim, what is the vision? How would you say that this money can be used in Little Village, especially on the 26 corridor, right? It's a very vibrant corridor. Many people go there. What is your vision and the foundation's vision?
Thank you for that question. So the first year of the grant is actually, we're supposed to generate a report based on what the community wants. That's really our goal for 2024, is to have community meetings and in alignment with the quality of life plan that it currently exists in Little Village, to so that collectively, so there's a community voice in how those funds should be applied. And then there's another competitive grant process where we have to apply, the 10 designated districts have to apply to get the money allocated within the communities. So, we're ready to listen to what the community really wants.
Really, it's a really community effort. Mm-hmm. What would you want to tell your residents, your gente, about really understanding what this means for the neighborhood?
Well, what this means is that we will have a hub in the city of Chicago that obviously our community can define. Puerto Ricans have shaped the life of the city. We have these 2 huge flags that basically speak to what contributions Puerto Ricans have made to the city. The flags are made out of steel because the first migration of Puerto Ricans came to work in the steel mills. The flags are made out of pipelines because another group of Puerto Ricans came to work in the pipeline industry. And they're welded together because another group of Puerto Ricans came to work there. We want those families, we want those people to celebrate the contribution to Chicago, but also be able to share our culture and our vision with the rest of the city.
So it's very exciting news. Anything else, any last words that you would like to share, Kim?
I mean, we're really excited about what this means for Little Village and what the cultural district can, what we can add to the community and what we can do to increase tourism and investment in the neighborhood.
If people want to participate, can they go to the Little Village Foundation?
Yeah, www.flvchicago.org.
Well, thank you so much for both of your input. And we're back to wrap things up right after this. And that's our show tonight. And join us tomorrow night at 5:30 and 7 for the Weekend Review. And stay tuned here tonight. We will have live coverage of President Biden's State of the Union address tonight at 8 p.m. Now, from all of us here at Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices, I'm Joanna Hernandez. Stay healthy, stay safe. Buenas noches.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm that is proud to be a multilingual law firm that provides translators for a variety of languages.